Brandon sat in that courtroom thinking he was about to be vindicated as the perfect husband. Then his wife started talking, and with every word that came out of her mouth, his entire world and his carefully crafted image began to crumble. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the most jaw-dropping relationship stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about love and marriage. Today's story comes from a divorce proceeding that went viral, and honestly, when I first read this testimony transcript, I had to put my phone down and take a walk. We're talking about Brandon, a man who genuinely believed he was husband of the year material, until his wife got under oath and painted a completely different picture. If you're ready for a story that'll make you rethink what perfect really means, let's get into it. So let me paint you a picture of Brandon. This guy was the type who would post anniversary tributes on social media talking about how blessed his wife was to have him. He'd brag to his friends about how he allowed his wife to work part-time, how he helped with the kids on weekends, and how he was basically the most considerate husband on the planet. In his mind, he was doing everything right. He provided financially, he didn't cheat, he didn't hit her, so obviously he was winning at marriage, right? Wrong. So incredibly wrong. But here's what Brandon didn't realize. While he was busy patting himself on the back, his wife Sarah was drowning. And we only found this out when she finally got her day in court. Because what Brandon called being helpful was actually him doing the bare minimum. What he called being generous was him controlling every dollar that came into their house. This man literally made his wife ask permission to buy groceries that cost more than his arbitrary budget. And the worst part? He genuinely thought he was being responsible. Now here's where it gets really dark, and this is the part that made me understand why this testimony went viral. Brandon had convinced himself that his controlling behavior was actually love. He monitored Sarah's phone because he worried about her safety. He chose her clothes because he wanted her to look her best. He decided which friends she could see because he knew what was best for their family. This man had gaslit himself so hard that he couldn't see he was being abusive. He thought he was being protective. So what finally pushed Sarah to file for divorce? Get this. Brandon started making parenting decisions without consulting her, then got mad when she questioned him. We're talking about him enrolling their kids in activities, choosing their schools, even deciding their bedtimes, all while telling Sarah she was being emotional when she tried to have input. This man really said his wife was being dramatic for wanting a say in raising her own children. The audacity is astronomical. And here's the kicker. When Sarah filed for divorce, Brandon was genuinely shocked, like truly blindsided. He couldn't understand what he'd done wrong. He started calling her family, her friends, anyone who would listen, asking them to convince her she was making a mistake. In his mind, he was the victim of an ungrateful wife who didn't appreciate everything he did for her. The cognitive dissonance was absolutely unreal. Fast forward to the divorce proceedings, and Brandon walked into that courtroom like he was about to school everyone on what a model husband looks like. He had his evidence ready, bank statements showing he provided financially, photos of family vacations, even character references from his buddies. This man was so confident in his narrative that he was actually looking forward to his wife's testimony, thinking it would just confirm what a catch he was. Oh, honey, was he in for a rude awakening. When Sarah took the stand, she started quietly. Factual. Calm. She talked about the financial control, the isolation from friends, the constant criticism disguised as helpful suggestions. And y'all, Brandon's face in that courtroom. According to the court reporter who leaked this story, you could literally watch his confidence drain in real time, because for the first time he was hearing how his actions actually affected someone else, and it was nothing like the story he'd been telling himself. But Sarah wasn't done. She talked about how Brandon would test her by moving things around the house and then accusing her of being forgetful when she couldn't find them. How he'd invite his mother over without telling Sarah, then criticize her when she wasn't prepared to host. How he'd promise to watch the kids so she could see friends, then create last-minute emergencies so she'd have to cancel. Each revelation hit Brandon like a physical blow because he'd genuinely convinced himself these were normal husband behaviors. And then came the moment that broke the internet when this story got out. The lawyer asked Sarah what she wanted most from the divorce, and she said, "I want to buy groceries without having to justify every item. I want to wear what I want without being told it's inappropriate." I want to parent my children without being overruled. I want to exist without needing permission. Brandon later admitted to a friend that hearing that list made him physically ill because he finally understood what he'd been doing. The judge didn't just grant the divorce, they granted it with prejudice, citing Brandon's controlling behavior as emotional abuse. But here's what's actually kind of hopeful about this story. Brandon didn't double down or get angry. He got therapy, real therapy. Because hearing his wife's testimony forced him to confront the massive gap between his intentions and his impact. It took losing his family for him to realize that being right in his own mind meant nothing if he was wrong in reality. This story went viral because so many people saw themselves or their relationships in it. Brandon represents everyone who's ever confused control with care, or who's been so focused on their own perspective that they couldn't see the damage they were causing. And Sarah represents everyone who's been told they're being dramatic for having basic human needs. The scariest part isn't that Brandon was intentionally malicious. It's that he was completely oblivious to his own behavior. So what can we learn from Brandon's rude awakening? That good intentions without self-awareness can be just as damaging as malicious ones. That marriage isn't about one person being grateful to the other. It's about mutual respect and partnership. And most importantly, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is listen when someone tells you you're hurting them, even if that's not what you intended. What do you think? Was Brandon's ignorance an excuse, or just as harmful as intentional control? Let me know in the comments below, and if stories like this fascinate you as much as they do me, hit that subscribe button because, trust me, we're just getting started.